So I came back from this little movie last night, F1 the movie, which I don't know why they don't just call it F1. Everyone seemed to really enjoy it but me. I thought the movie started out great. There's this big car race. I think it's the Daytona 500. And the way Joseph Kosinski shoots the scene is incredible. He's the director of Top Gun Maverick, and you can see some of that here. Kosinski's had a really interesting trajectory. He started with Tron Legacy, which was like all CGI. And then when he did, Maverick, there was a large emphasis on using real jets with real stunts. Granted, some of the stuff must have been CGI, especially like when they're diving down the canyon and have to shoot back up. But it was really amazing. And he does the same thing that he did with jets that he does with cars in this movie. The camera doesn't cut too much like most other racing films or movies featuring action in general do. And it's really exciting, the action. But here's where the problem comes. The movie's 2.5 hours. If you look at it, it says 2:35, but it's 2.5. And there's very little story. It's just racing scene after racing scene after racing scene, and the characters are hardly examined. Like, there is a dimensionality to them. The protagonist of the film, Sonny Hayes, he's played by Brad Pitt, and he's this down and out guy. He had a lot of money. He was a top racer, but then he ended up throwing it all away to gambling addiction, and he had a few divorces and stuff like that. But despite all those problems that Sonny has in his life, he doesn't really act like it bothers him. Like, everything is just very laid back, oh yeah, whatever kind of attitude. And Sonny's main character flaw is that he is arrogant and he does whatever he wants and doesn't listen to anybody. So there's a lot of scenes on the track where people are saying to him on the headphones, don't do this, don't do that, and he's just going, well, I'm going to do it, and then it winds up with him crashing a bunch of cars. But as you can guess, in the end, he ends up being right, and it works out. So he's kind of a character that feels flawless, although he is flawed. But we really needed to see some more scenes of emotion from him. Maybe see a little bit of his backstory, maybe 10 minutes of it, 5 minutes of it, some quick flashbacks, because it doesn't seem like these mistakes really haunted him. And apparently he's supposed to be like this guy who's never that famous. He was a has-been, but you know he had a lot of money. So anyways, in the film, he ends up getting recruited by a guy named Ruben, played by Javier Bardem. Ruben's like an old friend of his and a racer. He's building a team for the F1 race, I think across the globe. And when he joins the team, he runs into this other guy named Joshua Pierce, who's like this guy who's more interested in fame and social media than he is with actually being a racer. And then there's Kate, who's the love interest of the movie. And she's a race car designer, pretty much, or she like adjusts the vehicles or something like that, or an engineer, whatever you want to call her. And these characters are interesting. There's nice traits about them, but they're not really examined. And for 2.5 hours, the movie's just one racing scene after another, and it becomes repetitive and exhausting. Like, how many times can I see a car drive around in circles while people are talking over the radio? And that's the scene again and again and again. It just gets really redundant. And there's also like a lack of stakes in the film. Like, there's a couple car accidents with central characters in it, but the characters aren't really hurt. They just kind of wake up and they're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go back to work now. And you're like, what? You just got in a horrific accident. How are you okay? And the fact that they do that twice is weird, and it's just kind of looked over. So yeah, like, everyone loved it. The action's great, and the movie is very formulaic, as I'm calling it in my review, Formulaic 1. It plays all the familiar beats. You have, it's like Rocky with cars. You have the guy who has kind of flushed his career away, and now he's sort of down and out, and he has a comeback. We've seen that element. We've seen the love interest element, who happens to work in the same sport that the main character does. We have Javier Bardem, who's kind of like the mentor, but not really. But you know, he is sort of a mentor-like figure in a way, I guess you could say. But yeah, the movie just felt very dry and drab, and there's not much story, just more emphasis on action. And with all that emphasis on action and little character, action doesn't matter that much when you're not invested in the story. A lot of people were invested in the story, but I just found it predictable and dull and overly long. So it wasn't for me, but it'll probably be for you. You probably won't agree with me on this review, which is ironic because my show's called You'll Probably Agree, but you probably won't agree with me on it. But if you do, feel free to let me know, and if you don't, please be constructive in your criticism. Okay, thanks, and stay tuned for the full review.